left this documentary even more so conflicted about Bill Cosby than I was before I watched it. It was good. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby. Now this is a 4-part documentary on Showtime, and boy, was it Showtime. Before I get into how I felt about it, what I did and didn't like about it, and how I feel about Bill Cosby after watching it, I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that, and then we're going to come back and discuss all things. It's just so much, it's so much to cover, and the director here did a wonderful job stuffing it all into those 4 parts. I feel so informed and fulfilled. I just might watch it again.
Go back.
Now that you guys have hopefully subscribed to see more of me, let's get into this documentary. Now I thought it over for all of 10 minutes not to even touch on this documentary because it was so much. And y'all know I like to talk. But I had to, at the peak of the documentary, even beginning, when we haven't gotten to the root of the issue. I am a child of Bill Cosby. I felt that in my whole spirit. How do we measure who he is to us versus what and who he represents now? That is the question. Now, in getting the answer to that question, we hear from a variety of people. I love the way that this doc was handled. It is completely non-biased. We hear from everybody from comedians, lawyers, authors, professors, actors, people who work with him, the people who have downright hatred for him, the people who no matter what will stick by him and have love for him. And most of all, we hear from the victims. The victims are here and they are speaking. We hear from everybody we would ever want to, besides the Cosby family and Camille and them. They not here. Now, all 4 parts go in order accordingly to Cosby's life. So we begin the first documentary with him being a college dropout of Temple University. This is the 60s. And Cosby is getting into comedy, and he is immediately so likable, funny, intelligent. He has this storytelling style of comedy that of course has been replicated, imitated. He appealed to everyone. He is clean and has universal appeal. And I love here in the documentary, they compare him to someone like a Dick Gregory and the comedic styles that he had at the time. Funny thing is, Bill Cosby wanted to be perceived as a Dick Gregory, but he saw a different perspective and a different picture for his life, and saw that if he didn't discuss civil rights, if he didn't have racism, profanity, or politics in his style of stand-up, it is strictly clean, innocent. I'm gonna be this way so I can get out to the masses, get out into that white audience, make my way through those doors, and then and only then will I reach back out and try to help, my black brothers and sisters. But right now, I'm gonna play the game. This is what's getting me out there. Now, immediately, since Bill Cosby is seen as the non-threatening comedian, so many doors open for him in the entertainment industry that would have never opened for anybody else. And the documentary is very informative in that way. I love the fact that we didn't immediately get into the slander, the allegations, the victims. No, we go all the way back to the 60s. Bill Cosby has been around a very long time, and a lot of people, myself included, are not very familiar with the very, very beginning of his career and the ground that he broke and what he represented from the very beginning of his career, breaking ground, being the first black TV star of a show way back when. I've never seen an episode of I Spy, but the representation there was so important because 20 years prior, we had Amos and Andy, we had Step and Fetch It, we had Mammy. There were no sophisticated black people on TV whatsoever. And Bill Cosby comes in way before he's Cliff Huxtable and he's America's Dad, breaking ground, opening doors for black men and women to do stunt work when they were only bringing in white people, putting them in blackface, painting their whole body just for them to have a stunt double. It's like, no, I'm standing my ground already in the beginning of my career as a black man. I do not want anybody filling in for me, opening doors right away. I love the setup of him being a staple in the black community, him being that brother from the very beginning. So it made it even easier for him to manipulate and move the way he chose to move all his life. So now that we've set Cosby up as that family man, by this point, you know, he's married Camille, he's starting to have children, he's made all his great comedy albums, he's been in so many movies, TV shows, he has all these accolades, different awards, Emmys, Grammys, and still has this pristine, clean image. He is a set man from the beginning of his career in the 60s. And that's when we segue into 60s misogynistic ass behavior. And it got good. Now, once we get into that 60s misogynistic ass behavior, and it's just like, oh, you know, that was a different time. I love how it's referenced as a different time, but you can physically see that these things are still happening and they're still considered okay. It was okay for men to be downright disrespectful to women, be very handsy, be womanizers, be downright pig, and it would not raise any red flags. And this is our segue into Hugh Hefner and those goddamn Playboy bunnies. Now, I cannot wait until we get our Hugh Hefner story. He is always tied to all things fuckery. Like, that man has some skeletons. Whenever his cat gets let out of the bag, I will be here for it. But back to the doc. I love the trickery here of just kind of blindsiding us with all of this Playboy bunny footage and the club and the types of comedians that were there. And it's just like, why are we learning about these two single Playboy bunnies in their experience? Now we have a white Playboy bunny and a black Playboy bunny. I love the black woman. She was so beautiful. I remember her vividly from older black exploitation films. Gorgeous lady. But you see that they have vastly different experience. One, on the other hand, has a lot of respect for Bill Cosby, loved that he opened doors for stunt work, loved her job as a Playboy bunny, felt like she made good money, felt like she was never disrespected, loved the job. Then you have a white bunny. She just felt like it was so degrading. She has awful memories about it, and it's just left a really bad taste in her mouth. And we're like, okay, well, what is this for? We figure out what it's for real soon when we get into the Spanish Fly. Now, as soon as anybody mentions Spanish Fly, you know me, my ass, coolin' and loud, it's getting kind of funky. Me and the crew were drinking Brass Monkey. The girl looked fly. I gave her the eye, reached in the locker, grabbed the Spanish Fly. I put it in the bottle, mixed it in the cup, walked over to the girl, said, baby, what's up? Like, Spanish Fly been out here. It's been outside. Now, this Spanish Fly is a libido driver. It's a booster. It's to, you know, get you in the mood. You slip it in the drink and a straight up date R drug, like early gateway. And it was very acceptable at the time. These things were being sold in stores. It was broadcasted like they were fucking selling Kool-Aid. No. But I love how we jump to a later, late 90s, late 80s clip of Cosby on a Larry King interview just endorsing all the best things about Spanish Fly. You know, I would take a little drop, put it in the glass, and then we get that sense of him leaving breadcrumbs behind, him telling on himself. And this is when we get into that narcissistic behavior of, I'm not gonna get caught. I'm not going to get caught so much that I'm going to sit here on this whole broadcast that is going to be seen by everyone and insinuate me using Spanish Fly, putting it in women's drinks and having the best time, and it was a good time, and nobody's going to say anything to me because I'm fucking Bill Cosby. And immediately after that, we get into that first victim, taking it all the way back to those bunnies speaking about their experience. And it's just like, oh, this is why she was speaking. She is a victim. And we don't just get bits and parts of their story. It's very telling. They start from the very beginning of the assault all the way to the end. And it always feels very predatory. It feels like they've been taken in, they've been kidnapped. And this first story, we have a mother and her losing her son in the pool and her just being really down. And this is when we have the first moment of Cosby displaying the same pattern, which, you know, goes hand in hand with why are all these women coming forward? Why do they all have the same story? It's because he pretty much did the same thing throughout the years the same way. He's preying on women at their weak moments, handing them a pill. That whole handing them a pill, like, that took me out. It seems crazy now to think that anybody would just take a pill that someone handed to them, but there is just a lot of strength on him being Bill Cosby, him being, you know, this big star. He's the man. Why would I deny anything that he's willing to give me? Why wouldn't I trust this person? So we're getting their trust. We're finding them in a vulnerable space. We're taking them back to these secluded areas. We're drugging them. We're, you know, made to do oral, and we're assaulting them. And then we just pretty much send them on their way, gaslight these women, and continue to do it throughout the years. Like, it wasn't an easy watch. Now, in part 2, we get into the 70s, and we're just leaving the 60s, and Bill Cosby is already cemented. He's already a decorated performer, comedian, actor. He is very much so well versed and already into very much assaulting women. But this particular Bill Cosby is now really big on education. He already was, but now he is really big on informing Black people about the whitewash of American history. Completely kind of switching up a little bit from how he was before in his stand-up. He is now standing his ground, and he really, really wants people to take education serious. And I love this also because we get into the precursor of him being grumpy old man Cosby. You know, that ridiculer, being very preachy, being very judgmental. Every single moment in the beginning of his career is a reflection of who and what he became. The documentary is very telling, and he leaves breadcrumbs about himself as a human being more than once. Now, this is around the time that we may get into, well, I know myself, get into more things that I'm familiar with as far as Bill Cosby is concerned as a comedian, as an actor. This is when we get into the times changing. It's the 70s, a little blaxploitation, you know, Uptown Saturday Night. Let's do it in the morning. A sweet breeze in the summertime. But I feel like a butterfinger. I want to do it again. We get into, you know, stuff like let's do it again. And those things not being super successful for him, and him gravitating more into the children's demographic, and him being on shows like The Electric Company and Captain Kangaroo, and really still pushing for education. But at the same time, you know, weaseling his way into homes, instilling himself in the minds of not only kids, but their parents, that this is a safe guy. He is gonna say good things, all the while making a whole drug album dedicated to kids about uppers and downers. I don't know, I've never heard it, but the shit sounded weird via the video. Still dropping those breadcrumbs, like the audacity, the whole hypocrisy of you to try to inform anybody about the dangers of drugs and the effects, all while you out here Yeah. But we also get into beloved things like, now I'm gonna sing a song for you. We get into Fat Albert. Nah, 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 gonna have a good time. I love how the documentary uses the things that they love about Cosby, even though they completely disdain him. They really give us a reflection of how we feel. We may feel a certain way about Cosby, but when you put that nostalgia, those wonderful things that he did in your face, you can't help but watch. You can't help but sing along. You can't help but feel some type of a way and appreciate him for those things. All the people who went and they're going and watching and relating to the Fat Albert clips, how groundbreaking these things were. He did and provided a lot of firsts for Black people, and he's done a lot of things that just can't be taken away, and it's very conflicting. Good job, Doc. Now, even though we have all this greatness coming off of Cosby, the documentary is really sure to let us know, okay, yeah, the accolades are happening, the Fat Albert show is happening, but don't forget this thing is happening. The Spanish Fly is still present, the Quaaludes are still present, and all the women and the count is still piling up through the 70s of him assaulting these women. And we also get into his education, which I thought was really funny because he is, first of all, the moral righteous compass for all things good and positive. Education has always been a strong extension of the Cosby brand, but at the same time, we never graduated from high school. We got a GED. We went to college, but we also dropped out of school. So any degrees or doctorates that we have obtained have been honorary. And then there comes, the morals. Has he obtained these things because he's donated so much money to these schools, showed so much philanthropy throughout his career, has always been really prestigious and uppity as far as education, even though throughout his life he struggled immensely. Did he write certain dissertations? Is this all a persona for him to appear in the public eye a certain way? Did he really care about education, or was this just another opportunity to be fraudulent and make America think that he's that guy? Now, after we leave the possibility of him maybe using education to get through certain doors and to get to, people's mental, how dare you criticize me? I'm Dr. Cosby, want to put that PhD, those elemental P's on the end of his name? Yeah. Was it just for that? The world may never know. But we get into more victims at this point. We are, getting deep into the 70s. And there's a lot of gaslighting going on courtesy of Cosby. Now, the documentary gets really interesting at this point. You have him continuing to, divest in his comedy and the albums and the stand-up. But unlike all the other comedians, he is centered in Vegas. And it's just seen as an opportunity to prey on more women, indulge in all this excess, all these Quaaludes, all this Spanish Fly. What I found really curious was his actual home life is completely isolated and separated from this documentary. You rarely hear about his wife or his children throughout this entire thing. You don't hear about them through any of the people being interviewed, through any of the people who may have met him, who, you don't hear about them. It's almost as if Camille was non-existent and distant. It's really mysterious. But when we get into him continuing to, it gets real questionable at this point for me, honestly, because we have him preying on all types of women, different walks of life, different ages, different occupations, everyone from a random waitress to, somebody who's aspiring to be a singer, but they're a teacher, to a tennis player. and they all share the same story. Of course, we have the Quaaludes coming out, so he told us to come over. There wasn't really anybody there but us. He proceeded to give us a drink or a Quaalude. I'm going in and out of consciousness. I'm waking up, coming to. I'm feeling violated. I'm feeling hurt. I know something happened. I know my body has been freaking ravished without my consent. This is a horrible experience. I never expected this from Mr. Cosby, and we go through the whole, thing several times. But what makes these times different is pretty much each and every one of these women proceed to go back in the company of Mr. Cosby a second time. Now, I wouldn't be being honest if that didn't raise an eyebrow for me myself. I absolutely did not understand going back a second time to be violated again. Now, there is a lot of trust going on. This is Mr. Cosby, and it's not lost on me at all that a lot of these women were expecting an opportunity. They went seeking, maybe he can put me on, maybe he can help me with my career, and it turned out to be something that they absolutely did not warrant. But I just didn't. Most of these women remember everything up into some of them engaging in the assault and just going out or coming to. But for the most part, there is a memory of it to know I was violated. Some of them are waking up nude. He's, being inappropriate. Don't tell anybody about what happened. This is between me. It's more than enough confirmation that sex happened without your consent. So to have multiple women go back or just feel like, no, he has, such a strong hold in the community as a public figure, as a person. I honestly did not understand going back. I myself have had an experience, and it's nothing that I would ever want to go back to. It's nothing that I would ever want to see again, ever want to relive, ever put myself in the position to experience any of it. So to have them go back, I was just it's so hard because you don't want to victim shame or blame anybody. Nobody deserves anything like that. But it's like, why go back? Why put yourself in harm's way again? Some of them went back and, for lack of a better word, escaped or got a little bit smarter about the way they were going to move around Mr. Cosby, or they went back and it happened a second time, and it's just like, oh my God, it's really real. It wasn't my imagination. And it's just under the eye of he gaslit me so much to the fact that I went back a second time, or I ended up apologizing to him for me, embarrassing myself, for me coming to, me throwing up, me getting drunk, me doing this. And it's just, the trickery of Cosby. But I have to be honest here, that threw me for a loop. But we end off part 2 segueing into the 80s and comedy changing. Of course, we have, Eddie Murphy. We have the rawness of Eddie Murphy. We have Richard Pryor. A lot of the raunchiness is coming into the forefront. And you have, just like I said, when they hit you with the harsh facts about Cosby, they always hit you with the accolade or something about him that they loved, which is his 80s stand-up special. You hear people talking about the dentist joke and how much they love his style of comedy and how important he was to, that moment. Well, you guys, that was my review for We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby. I hope you enjoyed it. This was, of course, part 1 and 2. I will be returning with 3 and 4. Please drop down and tell me what you thought about this think piece. I would love to read your comments, love to get some feedback. I need some thoughts, honey, because I was really thinking while watching this. I cannot wait to return with 3 and 4 and get those comments going. I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Bye.